You're listening to Don't Tell Me to Relax, the award-winning, no-nonsense, always friendly, down-to-earth fertility podcast. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist and big believer that fertility care and education should be better. Each week, I sit down with a guest to share real stories, advice, and honest conversations to help you feel better informed. And for care and connection, we have our Don't Tell Me to Relax online fertility community and our clinics in London and across the UK. To find out more about getting involved and working with us, the details are in the show notes. Don't Tell Me to Relax is proudly sponsored by the lovely people at Acupips. Acupips is the original ear seed company founded by acupuncturist Zoe Young. Ear seeds are tiny seeds or metal beads attached to an adhesive and placed on pressure points in the ear. They're brilliant for calming the mind, easing anxiety, and restoring balance. We use them in our clinics all the time. Head to acupips.com to find out more and use the code RELAX for 20% off. Hello and welcome to today's episode. It's a little bit different today because we are creating a podcast episode that you might want to listen to, but you also might want to share with a family member or a friend, because the title of the podcast is What Women Wish Family and Friends Understood About Infertility. And I am joined by our lovely fertility coach, Carly. And Carly is going to tell us all about how this idea came about. Over to you, Carly, and thanks for joining me, as always.
Thank you, my pleasure. So today's episode came about from one of my tea and chat get-togethers. So as you might know, you might not know, we meet monthly on the last Wednesday of every month. And I think back in April, there was a lot of chat about family and friends getting things wrong and how what my ladies wished they would do instead of what they were doing. And so I mentioned that we could do a podcast episode on it, and here we are. So we've both been speaking to our communities, and you on Instagram. I emailed my mailing list over the weekend to ask what they wished others knew, what they were going through. And as you can see, we had a huge response, didn't we? Huge response. And so we're going to try and go through as much as we can and see where it leads us.
Okay, exactly. And the idea is that we don't want this to be berating people or saying that they've done anything wrong, because we know that your family and friends, or if you are a family and friend of somebody going through infertility, we know that you want to do your best, and we know that you want to help people, but sometimes it can come out the wrong way, or sometimes we might not necessarily know unless we've been through a fertility experience ourselves, or we work very closely with people who are going through fertility problems. We might not know what the best things are, and we might inadvertently do things that could cause more upset. And that is exactly why we're here. It's not to judge, it's not to criticize, it's just to provide helpful information and some practical ideas and some things to really sit and think about so that you can go forward in a different way. So we're going to break it down. We've got some general themes because, as Carly mentioned, we had so many people message us, which really suggests that this is a big topic. And what we've done is we've broken it down into broad themes that we're going to discuss. And we really hope it will be thought-provoking and helpful, as always, is what we want to do. So I am going to start with two suggestions. One is that infertility takes over more of life than people realize, and that the emotional toll of infertility is relentless. And this came in a lot because I think that because people going through fertility problems are obviously still going to work, you might still be seeing them, they might be turning up at family parties, and you might think, oh, they seem all right. They're still cracking on with their day. They're not off sick or avoiding things. They might be just carrying on their day to day. But I think what came across very strongly in all of the messages is that it is on their mind 24/7. So they may appear like they're not thinking about it, but that is absolutely not what our community said. We had quotes saying things like, life can feel like it's on hold, it becomes the background noise of life. It affects everything from mood, motivation, plans, and relationships. And many, many, many people feel like they completely lose themselves as part of this process. And so it's that thing, isn't it? Never judge somebody because you don't know what's going on in their life. And I think this really, really applies to a fertility picture. And some of the words to describe the emotional toll that people sent in are things like exhausting, heartbreaking, cruel, soul destroying, constant grief, overwhelming, helpless, and sadness. Those negative tests month after month can be devastating. And this is, I think we would both agree, Carly, what we see in clinic is that exhaustion and depletion and sadness that people carry around with them all the time, and it doesn't go away.
No, absolutely. And I think generally people think about trying for a baby as just going out and having lots of sex. And it's just kind of, they might think about the other side of it as around testing time, but I don't think people understand at all, or I don't even think I know most don't understand at all about how multifaceted it is, how it literally takes over every thought from the moment you wake up in the morning to going to bed of a night time, and how it's really, really difficult to switch off from that.
Yeah. And if you're a family and friend member watching somebody close to you, they might not be discussing it with you. They might not be telling you that, but that is absolutely the reality of what we see.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely, and that ties into, one of the topics I'm going to talk about, but that whole family and friends not wanting to talk about it because they don't want to upset you. So for some of the ladies that replied, they said that they wanted people to talk about it, and because it's always in the forefront of their mind. But then, interestingly, some did turn around and say, actually, we don't want to talk about it. So in that case, there obviously needs to be some boundaries put around it. But I would say that not to ignore it, and to maybe step lightly in the first instance, but to see if your loved one wants to talk about it, because you bringing it up is not going to remind them. It's there. It's going on in the background every moment of their day. So it's a case of sometimes they might want to talk about it, other times they won't. But please don't just pretend it's not happening. And please don't think that if you bring it up, you're going to remind them, because you're certainly not.
Yes, and you know what? I got a message on Instagram that said, "It's on my mind 24/7. Don't worry that bringing it up is upsetting me because it never leaves my thoughts."
Absolutely. So it is just that, and they don't want an answer. You can't give them an answer. You can't fix it, but just to check in to see how they're doing, check in to see if there's any support that you can give them, and just not pretending it's not happening.
Yeah.
I think
Which is quite a kind of, I don't know whether it's a British thing, but it is a thing that we don't wanna make people feel uncomfortable, or we don't like feeling uncomfortable ourselves. So it's asking those difficult questions, or that could potentially be difficult, so we don't do it and we ignore it. I got lots of messages on Instagram saying that people stopping asking, because obviously we know that fertility journeys for some people can go on for years, and so people just stop asking because it's been going on for such a long time that people kind of check out on what's happening. And relationships are lost when people go through fertility problems, because When the shit hits the fan, you really find out who your family and friends are. And I think this is one of those occasions where that is really true, because those true family and friends are going to be the ones that are with you for those years and years, if that's how long your fertility journey takes. And afterwards, no matter what the outcome is. Because one of the other messages I got was that you never stop thinking about it through treatment. And even when you get pregnant and have your baby, it stays with you. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
that is so true, isn't it?
It's really true. It's there imprinted on your body, and it's not something that you just shake off. I remember a while ago I had a client that said to me, as soon as I get my positive pregnancy test, I know that I'll be able to relax. I think we both know how that went.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. I wish it did. I really wish it did, but it doesn't. And it is just that, just that ongoing support, just that ongoing checking in and having conversations, like you say, that can be really difficult. And it all ties into grief. It's the same kind of thing as people that have lost loved ones, and people think, oh, I don't want to mention their name just in case it upsets them. You're not reminding them. It's their name is there in their head, and it's exactly the same. And it's just keeping that conversation going, and also understanding the days that they do want to talk about it, and the days that they don't.
Yeah. I guess it's about continuously providing that space and that opportunity to do so, whether it's talking or just being there.
Completely, and knowing that, trying to conceive, especially, as you were saying, when it can be such a long period of time, or even those that isn't a huge amount of time, but it can just be so isolating. And so, just knowing for your loved one to know that they're not alone in this, as alone as they feel in it, I think can be incredible support.
Yes, and that is one of the other things that came up a lot, is this idea of isolation and people going through it feeling unseen, forgotten about, and kind of the fertility part just gets ignored and airbrushed over. That came through a lot. One lady has put the loneliness of it all. I feel like most don't know what to say, so they don't say anything at all.
Yeah. So it is that knowing that you might get it wrong, but getting it wrong is better than not saying anything at all.
Yeah. And one of the other things that came up, Carly, and what do you think about this, is this idea of, as a person looking at somebody going through something difficult, our human nature is to try and fix it and offer solutions, offer advice, give information. A lot of us can go into practicality mode. And that came up a lot again, about people saying, I don't want advice. I don't want to know what your next door neighbor's best friend did. I don't want your thoughts about it. I just want you to listen and be there. And that was a very, very common theme as well.
Absolutely, because there is no stone unturned, is there? It's a case of, if your loved one is trying to conceive, they will be researching into the night. They will be chatting things through with Claude and ChatGPT constantly. They will be listening to podcasts. They're consumed, totally consumed. If they wanted you to give them some information, they might well ask. So I think without them asking, it's just that the best thing to do is just to be there and just to acknowledge what they're going through. No, this is that whole statement. This feels hard because it is hard. I can see what you're going through. I can see how much of your life this has taken from you. What can I do? How can I be there? How can I hold you? How can I support you?
We've got a really good one that came in. It's okay to just say it's shit rather than trying to fix it. I thought that summarizes that up perfectly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, that could be the name of the that could be the name of the episode. And it goes back to why we are called Don't Tell Me to Relax, because
Yeah.
it is that just take a holiday, just no.
Yeah.
We don't need to, your loved one does not need to hear that.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
just need to know that they're loved, know that they're supported, and know that they're still welcome however they're feeling at that moment in time.
Yeah, someone's put, "We don't need solutions. Stop fixing us and just listen." Thought that was nice as well.
Yeah. And if you want to sit here and just cry, or if you just want to sit here and just rant, the ladies that I have that I work one on one with, part of the way that we work together is if they need to just rant, and I just get these random emails that are just kind of like, "Argh,"
Yeah.
and I will just send a kiss back, or just that they don't want me to try and talk them around or talk them out of it.
I guess it's always that thing, isn't it, of, whenever you do counseling, it's about feeling validated and feeling heard. Counseling doesn't ever offer you any solutions, does it? But it's about having somebody really listen to what you say and validating it by saying, "Yeah, this is really hard. This is really difficult. This is really shit." And that validation, it's funny, isn't it? Because as a human being, we think, well, what? Does that really help? Does that really make somebody feel better? But it is a very, very powerful tool.
It's a really powerful tool, and obviously, I'm not a counselor. I'm a coach, but I work in the same way. And the whole kind of, where are these emotions stored in your body, and what do you need to say? And just by acknowledging, I've got a feelings wheel that I share with my clients. It's kind of, which of these things are coming up for you, because sometimes
Mm.
you can't even articulate them. And you're right. It's not about me fixing or trying to make things better, because I can't. We can't. We can support, and we can guide, and we can educate um, in the work that we do, but we can't fix things.
Even though we want to, that's the thing. We really want to, don't we? Because we feel like we're helping in that way, but it has the total opposite effect.
Absolutely. And I would always say to my ladies that um, when friends and family do try to help, it's always coming from love. I can't believe ever that it's not coming from love. It always comes from love, and it's a human instinct to try and make something better.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
somebody's hurting, if somebody's hurt, how do we make them better?
So we can't really do this podcast episode without talking about the phrases that people use when it comes to fertility, because they came up quite a lot.
Yep.
So obviously, "Don't tell me to relax" came up. Just go on holiday, I think, was mentioned, or have you tried stop thinking about it? Again, it goes back to those people are trying to offer solutions. They really do not land well. I'm not sure they land well in any context,
No, no.
but I think in this one in particular, they hurt, actually.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not validating the feelings. It's just saying, right, okay, let's kind of try and override them. What your loved one needs is validation and understanding.
We should kind of write a list, shouldn't we, of like all the sentences to not use when it comes to fertility, so that people are really clear, because it's weird how they are so associated with it, of like, you'll get there in the end, it will happen when you stop thinking about it, just get drunk. Like there are set phrases that are really associated with this whole fertility issue, and I think we need to like list them out, maybe, so people are really clear that if they find themselves defaulting to it, they stop, or they read them and they know, so then there's no excuse to bring them out at a family occasion.
And this does go back to, in my view, to education,
Yes, so
and
you
how.
were gonna talk about
And
education.
that came up, that came up a couple of times with my ladies, about general education, that the whole sex education that we had in school, if that's where everybody, if we all think about the ladies that come to us and say, oh, we've learnt so much through the podcast, being part of the community, what we've taught them. If you haven't been taught that, your basis still is on what they learnt at school. And if you have sex, you'll fall pregnant. That's what we were taught at school, weren't we? So it's so even going back to absolute basic education, also down to male infertility. I don't think there's anywhere near as much education, as most people don't even know that that's a thing, do they? But also if you've got a loved one that's going through infertility treatment and it's been shared with you that they're going through IVF or assisted conception in some way, try and do some research and see what you can learn from that. You don't have to give any input. You don't have to share that you've learned it, but just understand how it works and the different stages. And it came up. Somebody replied back saying how people reply, "Oh, it's really exciting." If somebody
Yeah.
shares, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
going through IVF," "Oh, that's really exciting." It's not.
Yeah.
Because one, it's taken a huge chunk of time to get to this stage in the first place, and actually going through the process of IVF isn't exciting in any which way. And just to have the knowledge of what they have to go through, the time frame, how it's not always a quick, it's not always a quick process. All the ways that it can be stopped, slowed down, testing in between. Just to know that, I think really, really helps again to feel understood.
Yes, and actually somebody wrote into me saying exactly this, because they said updating people on the practicalities of what's happening is exhausting in
But yeah,
itself.
yeah,
So by not being educated and by asking lots of practical questions, you might think, oh, I'm being interested, but that person might be exhausted from explaining their fertility situation. Maybe they've had to do it at work. Maybe they've had to do it, with their partner. They're taking on a lot of information for themselves. So if they then have to do it for yourself, whilst it might be coming from a good place, and whilst some people might not mind it, other people might find it is another thing to do, and they don't feel like they've got the energy to educate you on what they're going through.
absolutely. And that there's enough going on um, inside their head anyway
Yes.
to even entertain that. And I think also going back to the education side of it, I think um, the kind of the disenfranchised grief that comes with infertility. So that grief that isn't recognised really in society.
Yes.
That so things like the number of eggs collected versus the number of follicles that were told. That's a loss. The number of eggs that are fertilised, unsuccessful transfers. These are all things that people wouldn't really register that are a form of loss or a form of grief. That the plans that you'd made, the the due dates that you'd planned in your head, all of these things that family and friends do not realise. I don't think. I think it's just a case of, oh, it was an unsuccessful transfer. Oh, okay. So when's the next round?
Yeah.
Just kind of hop back into it again. And I think
Yes.
just understanding by educating yourself and knowing that there's a lot of loss generally in IVF before you've even got to a transfer.
Yes. All of these things mean a huge amount to people and are loss and grief and trauma. And we need to understand that, because I think sometimes it's like there's a hierarchy, and for those people going through it, there is no hierarchy. It's loss.
I can't bear the term chemical pregnancy. I
Yeah.
really, really can't bear it. And that whole kind of, oh, at least you could get pregnant. All these things that
Oh
people
yeah.
are saying
Yeah.
that again, it's coming from love and it's coming from. We can all see where it's coming from, but that is a low blow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, someone's written in saying looking at negative tests month after month is soul destroying. I really see that.
Generally, people probably wouldn't see that though.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand because if they've not experienced it, they wouldn't understand. This is where education comes back into it, and also makes me feel like we should do kind of an information pamphlet of some sort. How far can we take this? But there is a lot.
And another thing that we've not talked about but came up a lot is this idea around family gatherings. So I see this a lot with people who have weddings, family gatherings, christenings, baby namings. When you're of a certain age and you have to go to those social events, and there will be children there, whether it's your nieces, your friends' children, or whoever, it can be really, really difficult. Or the WhatsApp group where your sister-in-law is sharing a baby picture, or your mum's sending you a picture of your cousin's new baby. These things are really, really difficult for people, and they suck energy and life and create so much distress and trauma. And you might not necessarily realize that that person who's just turned up has been so anxious, and the anxiety has been building as it's got closer and closer to the day of whatever it is. And being there in itself is a massive thing. And it's taking all their energy to be there or not being there, and not if people don't wanna go, that is absolutely okay. That is not to be criticized or judged. It's to be respected and empathized with, because whether you choose to go or not, it's a really difficult, big decision, because it is not easy for people in that situation, and they need to navigate that however best suits them, as opposed to what suits the family or what should be done.
I think what's probably not recognised is that if they are there, and we're also talking about couples here as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
I know that we always focus on the female, but we're talking about couples here. But it is that when you're put in that situation, they're going to be in fight or flight. Their brain is looking out for the danger, so they're waiting to be asked a difficult question. They're looking out for baby bumps. They're looking out for babies because they're trying to. It's their brain's way of trying to protect them. But also, what came up in the conversations I were having was also about managing other people's emotions as well. So they're how they've got to manage themselves when they're there. So they look sad because that's going to upset the person whose party it is, or they can't. What happens if so and so asked me a question and I am a bit flippant? Am I going to upset them? There's so much going on in their heads, and you know touching on this, but some that came through for me as well were about not making your parents grandparents. All of these extra layers that are hard, really, really hard to carry, and how you're not only trying to deal with your own emotions and what's going on, you're also trying to kind of buffer others' emotions.
So one other thing that came up, Carly, was around secondary infertility and the difficulties in that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, definitely. So this is big, and I think that um, uh, again, it's there's so much kind of unknown and lack of. I wouldn't say necessarily education, but knowledge around it. So people can flippantly turn around and say, um, at least you've got so and so, or when are you going to make them a brother or sister? And it is, and each time, yes, of course they're grateful for the family that they have, but they want to grow that family, and that's their right to do so. And so I think that um, secondary infertility can really be brushed over with friends, family, society, that it's a case of, you should be grateful for what you've got. Whereas actually, um, as I said, of course they are. It's just that they want to grow, and the grief, they can feel extremely grateful for what they have, and they can also be grieving for what they don't have.
And I think that comes through with one that we mentioned at the beginning, is this idea that it never leaves. So if you've supported somebody through a fertility issue, maybe they've been through a cycle of IVF and then they get pregnant, it's very easy for the world to go, well, they're pregnant now, so everything is okay. But we know, because we see it all the time in clinic, that that is not the case, and that trauma of that fertility journey of those years trying to conceive, of going through IVF, spending money, whatever happened, it stays with you through the pregnancy, and it will stay with you when you have your baby. And it's a really complicated emotion for people to feel. It's complicated for people who are going through it. So for the people who are supporting, it's even more complicated. But There is, and it's exactly what you say. It's that you are able to feel two things at the same time. So you're able to feel joy because you are pregnant and you have a child, but you still have very difficult emotions and that trauma of what happened to get you to that place. And for some people, it's not always the case, but I see it a lot that it is difficult being pregnant. It is difficult having a child when you've been through miscarriage or whatever the journey was before you. So it's really important that or if you're supporting people, if you've got family or friends, that is also acknowledged, that a child being pregnant doesn't suddenly solve all of those problems.
And I see it all the time as well, just like you do. And the whole, I might have an early pregnant lady come in to see me for reflexology mostly, or with the coaching as well. And I'll ask her how she is, and she'll be like, "No, I'm fine." Like, really? How are you? And they're scared. And I'm saying, you're allowed to say that this is hard or you're feeling unwell. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you're going to jinx things. It's just, again, it's that conditioning that we have to kind of keep it all in, and very British, we mustn't moan, but it needs to be talked about and it needs to be expressed and it needs to be known that it's okay to hold two emotions at the same time.
Thank you, Carly, for joining me to talk about this today. And we really hope whether you're going through fertility problems yourself, or whether you're listening to this to send to a family and friend, or a family and friend listening to this to support whoever in your life, that you have found this helpful. I'm just going to finish with kind of a roundup of the common themes that came through. And they are that infertility is always there, even when you cannot see it. That women don't need solutions nearly as much as they need understanding. And that please, please don't disappear because you're worried about saying the wrong thing. And that the grief of infertility reaches far beyond cycles and pregnancy tests, and that many, many women feel unseen, forgotten, and ignored on their fertility journey. So I think the message is that reach out, continuously check in, don't be afraid of asking the questions, because the isolation and the lack of understanding is a real phenomenon. And I think if people don't want to talk about it, they won't talk about it. But offering them the chance to talk about it is one of the best things that you can do to support somebody. So I hope you found that helpful. And we will put all the details to Carly's Tea and Chat and our community on the show notes, because there's lots and lots of resources there to give more support. And we've got some really good podcast episodes on things like the 2-week wait and what happens when you get a negative pregnancy test, with some practical tips in there. So we hope you find that helpful as well. So thanks, Carly. We hope you have found this helpful. If you'd like more on fertility education, please see our Teaching to Conceive free course linked at the end of the show. You'll also find the link to join our community. For more personalised fertility support, you can work with us one-to-one in clinic and online. You can book a discovery call to find out more.